Alright, then that was IKILLYA, New York's own IKILLYA with Razor Blades, going back to their 2011 album Recon, which blew up very well, and they are blowing up even more now than they were before. And joining me now to talk about it is none other than Jason Lekberg of New York's own IKILLYA. Jason, thank you for joining me tonight inside the Asylum.
Dude, thank you so much, man. I'm happy to be here.
Great, man. I know things are probably busy, so I appreciate the time you're taking to call in and talk to us a little bit about the band and what's going on. And
Absolutely.
I've been playing you guys for a while now, since I started doing internet radio, and wanted to have you kind of explain to the listeners that maybe are first being introduced to IKILLYA what you guys are about, what your sound is, how you came to be.
Sure, absolutely. First of all, thank you as well. You have been a huge supporter, and it really means a lot to us. So thank you so much for that over the last years. The band came together actually in 2005. So we've been together, let's see, coming up on 9 years now, which is like scary as hell to think of that. The bass player and I were kind of the core members, and we rotated through some different people. The band was really based on the idea of playing heavy music, because we all love heavy music, but finding new ways to explore that genre. And maybe we're not always as inventive as we'd like to be, but it's about listening to other types of music and finding other things that are inspirational to us, and finding ways to work those things in. For instance, there are horns in some of our music. The intro on Recon is horns. There are horns on a couple of songs on Recon, and as well on the new album Vae Victis. And just different rhythmic patterns and different styles of structure of songs, kind of where we've taken that. I think the end result, we kind of ended up as I think what a lot of people would call kind of American groove metal. I think we've been calling it street metal for a while, because that's kind of how we feel about it. We feel like it's very inspired by where we live, New York City and the street, and how diverse it is, how much culture there is, and how hard it is, which is something that we've all really appreciated. We're a very DIY band, and so it's a big part of our DNA.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely hear that there is definitely a New York sound to what you guys do. I mean, I'm here in the area, so of course I know the sound, but I definitely think it translates in your music. I mean, to be honest, you guys went over, if I remember correctly, you guys went over to Europe about a year or two ago, and for that to translate over there is just huge.
Yeah, that was really a very exciting thing for us. When we put out Recon in 2011, we released it ourselves, so the build was a little bit slow, but in the early part of 2012, some of the magazines over there, Metal Hammer and Kerrang and Rock Sound, and some of those magazines gave us some pretty big features. They really liked the record, so we felt like, we wanted to take advantage of that, and, scraped together our pennies and went and flew over to the UK and did about 9 dates in the UK, which was really exciting. It was a lot of fun. The crowds weren't very big, because obviously we're pretty small, but it was a great way to kind of establish ourselves there, and that's really something that's important to us, because currently the UK and Europe, as you just touched on, is much more susceptible and much more open to heavy music right now. So we just kind of need to, we're hoping to go back there in May again as well. So hopefully we'll be doing a lot more playing over there.
Awesome. Glad to hear you guys are going back. I remember when you guys first went over, Gary Pickard was the drummer that you had with you at the time. And he had told me you guys were going over, and I thought that was really awesome news, because like you said, everyone over there is a lot more open and willing to listen and accept rock and metal more than it is here in the States. And I wanted to ask you, because I don't really get a chance to get to talk to a lot of the bands that have been both here and there on a local level, but what was the difference you saw between, the local scene here, where you played for so many years, and the local scenes there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think the people, by and large, are really the same, which is something that, I love to think about that fact, the fact that we're really all the same people, no matter what country we're in and what language we speak, which is really nice. But I think the biggest difference that I saw was specifically in the way that the promoters treated artists. We played in a couple of different cities where the promoter had made us dinner and offered places for us to stay, and then paid us on top of that, which was a fascinating thing to us. I felt a little bit weird. We rolled into a bar called The Parish in Huddersfield in the UK, and the guy had made a whole plate of lasagna and had a pitcher of beer for us, and I was like, really? Like, I feel kind of bad. Can we pay you for this? But it's a very different way that they treat bands there. They understand that bands are over there touring, eating out of vending machines, and so they really take care of them in a different way than what I've experienced here in the U.S. And we've done a good amount of U.S. touring too, and have had great experiences. But rarely does the promoter make dinner and give you a place to sleep.
No, it's true. I mean, I can tell you from my own experiences, you guys have been part of a few Rock Against, not a few, you guys did one Rock Against Dystrophy with us a few years ago. Of course, that was your one and only very rare acoustic show.
Yep, that was the only one. It's the only time we've ever done that, and yeah, I wish it had been a little better for you. I don't think it was our finest moment, but
no, it was good. It was unique, and I could tell you from a bit of a promoter angle that it's harder. I don't know how open and how willing people are to go out any random night over in Europe. I'm sure it's much better than it is here. But over here, everyone's worried about who's got work the next day, what other shows are playing, and I guess the promoters here could definitely learn a thing or two from promoters over there.
I think so. I definitely think so, especially for a touring band. Since we live here in New York, I definitely wouldn't expect that type of treatment from a promoter here in New York. But when a band is on tour, it's a tough thing, and it's fun. I'm not going to take that away from it at all. But it's also something where, especially a smaller band, they don't have a lot of money. They're trying to make it work, and I think that would be nice. I think the one thing also, as you were just saying that I thought of this. I think that one thing that helps contribute to maybe a little greater public acceptance in Europe and UK is just simply because there's a little bit of a different work mentality that I've found. The people in Europe have a much they place vacation time as a much more important thing in their lives than we do here in the U.S. There are places in Europe where you get 5 weeks a year of vacation, and basically the month of August everything just closes. So there's definitely a little more emphasis on making sure you have time to enjoy yourself, which obviously then would include going out and seeing music. Whereas America is a little more, we're a working nation. That's what we came from. We came from a lot of people that came over here and wanted to work to make their living, and I think that has continued. It's continued. It's the land of opportunity. So people have the ability, if they're willing to work hard enough, to be able to really build something for themselves. And not that you couldn't do that in Europe, but it's much more the kind of the culture here.
Well, yeah, no, I totally get. Yeah, that also would explain as well why there are so many more music festivals over in Europe and than there is here. Everyone over there has a mentality of enjoying life overworking first. Then you can understand why almost every month during the warmer months there are these big festivals. While over here in the States, if there's a show on a Thursday night, everyone sits there and goes, well, can I take off Friday? Or, it's a weird mentality.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I think it's just a cultural thing. I think it's just the kind of the way we're wired versus the way they are.
Absolutely. I mean, sometimes I envy them, and there are times I'm sure they envy us. So.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that Gary Pickard of Never Even was your drummer the last time I saw you guys, which I believe was in Coney Island at the Tattoo Shot Lounge. And I was wondering what the lineup of the band is now. I know it's changed a few times over the years. I'm wondering where the band is at right now regarding a lineup.
Sure. Yeah, Gary played with us for about a year and a half, and he's still one of my closest friends. I mean, I really, really love that guy. He's just a great guy, great drummer, great all-around musician. Probably one of the better all-around musicians that I've ever met in general. I mean, you can give that guy any instrument, put him in a room, he'll come out an hour later and he'll play better than you ever did. I mean, he's just really talented guy. But when it comes to a band like IKILLYA and kind of the level that we're at, I mean, we're really, really, really trying to take this to the next level. And there's this weird, uncomfortable spot between being a band that plays regionally and maybe even tours on their vacation, and then a band that are professional musicians that make their living from it. And that in between those two is a very difficult kind of transition period where you've got to, in a sense, you got to quit your job and you got to just get on the road and figure it out. And that's something that is, understandably very difficult for a lot of people to be able to do, especially if they get, a little bit older and get more established and get married and things like that. So we have had a decent amount of turnover of people that just, for one reason or the other, were unable to really make that level of commitment. So the band currently is myself singing, Eric Jackson on guitar, who was actually in the band about 6 years ago and left to go to college and got that out of his system, and now he's back. And then the drummer is Bill Burton. He most recently played in the band Unveiled. They were playing around New York quite a bit. I was a big fan, and when he became available, I was very excited to work with him. And we're currently playing with Marielle Marie, I believe that's how you say her last name, who is also the guitarist for Eyes Like Cyanide. And she's playing bass for us right now. So that's our current lineup.
Awesome. Now, is this also the lineup that put together the upcoming album of, let me try to get it right. Look at iTunes doesn't want to cooperate with me right now. If I'm correct, Vae Victis?
Vae Victis, that's correct. Yes, Vae Victis is the title. The lineup that wrote and recorded the album is the same lineup that wrote and recorded Recon. And it's the band that we have been for the last quite a few years. So it's Dave Kerr on guitar, Mansa Gori on bass and horns, and Jeff Gretz, also of the band Zayo, on drums. And that was kind of our core writing group that created Recon, and then also Vae Victis. But those guys are not, Jeff obviously is involved in many other bands, so he's not in a position to be able to be a permanent member anyway. But Dave and Mansa, are just not in a position to really, quit their jobs, frankly, and get on the road with us. So that's why I've put together a different lineup to tour.
Now, do you find that being that there's basically, between the album and the live band, that there's basically almost two bands under one banner, does that run into any issues when it comes down to putting things together for the live show and transitioning from what's on the album versus what maybe you guys want to do live. Maybe someone wants to put a different take on something as opposed to what it was on an album when they do it live? Or is it just one of those things where everyone's like, alright, this is what it is on the album, let's come as close to it as we can?
Sure. I mean, it's one of those things that, that's actually a very, very good question, because it is something that comes into play. And, the people who are playing in the band right now, in a perfect world, I would love to make records and tour with the same group. And hopefully we will get to a place. I mean, if everything goes as I would like it to go, by the time we get to the end of this touring cycle, those guys will, be set in and we'll be doing it, and they'll make the next record, and then we'll move on from there. And there won't be a difference. But, I feel like if somebody's going to come in and put their time and be a member of the band, then they have, they've earned the ability to put kind of their flavor on it. So, Eric and Bill and Marielle are learning the songs, but they're also kind of throwing in a little thing here and there. I mean, I want it to be theirs as well. So I think there will be a little differences that you may hear in the live show, but I don't think it's anything that's a big enough structural change to where someone would listen to the song and say, it's completely different from the record. It's definitely still the same song. It's more about, from a drum perspective, maybe it's a fill, that goes between a verse and a chorus, where Bill kind of puts his little flair on the fill. Or the solos, guitar solos have always been improvised. What Dave played on the record, he never played live. He improvised his solos every time. So that's a place where Eric is really going to, be showing his flair, because he's going to be improvising his solos. And Marielle brought in a few things here. In the song "Bombs Away," for instance, she kind of found this little progression that she liked in one part, and I thought it sounded cool, and so she's playing that. So it's a little, it's minor differences, but it still really is the IKILLYA song. It's still the bass. It's still the bones. So I think if you came to see us, you would recognize the songs. You would enjoy them just as much. It just be a little salt on them, little extra flavor.
Right, understandable. And now, did that play into who joined the band for when the band was going to be live? Because I know there are, unfortunately, the way the industry is, there are a lot of people out there that think they're God's gift to music, and they want to do their own thing on everything, regardless of whether or not they're coming in to do something that was already done by somebody else. So did it make it a difficult process to find the right members for the live shows as opposed to what's on the album?
I think it definitely caused some challenges. I don't think I ran into too many people who necessarily felt like they knew better, just simply because when I was approaching people, I was approaching them and saying, hey, you know what this is. You know this band. This is what we do. If you're not a fan of what we're already doing, then you're not the right person to talk to. So it definitely made it a little more difficult. But, I feel very fortunate in that I found people who enjoyed the music that we had been making, and felt like it was something that they could get excited by and they could, grow with as well. So, prior to, we kind of do a funny thing in the band where, when there's somebody that we're playing with who's new, we'll go into, it's a weird word for it, but we'll call it like a probationary period. And we'll just say, okay, we like you, you like us, let's play together for a month and just see how it feels. And then at the end of the month, we sit back down and go, okay, are we liking this? Is this working? It gives us time to find out whether or not they're addicted to crack or something like that, and really figure out if it's going to work. So it made it a little bit more difficult, but I think that most people knew up front that they were coming in having to learn and play 2 albums worth of material. So most of the people I dealt with were kind of already in that mindset. So I didn't have to do too much work on somebody trying to convince them to play the music.
Well, that's good. Very not only is that good, but it's also very refreshing to hear because, as I said, there are so many musicians out there. Not all, not the majority, but there are musicians out there that have this mentality of, they know what they're doing, and whether they're coming in as a new member to a brand new band, or if they're coming in as a new member to an existing band, they have this mentality of, they know better than everyone else. So it's kind of refreshing to hear that you were able to, find the right pieces relatively easy.
Yeah, it was, and you're absolutely right. I think that's probably one of the hardest things about forming and maintaining a band. When you look at even signed bands, the number of bands that you can look at who have never replaced a member is just minimal. There's hardly nobody out there that still has the same members. And it's just because people grow as humans, and you really have to find that the people that get along, they have the same. People describe it like this all the time. It's kind of a weird analogy, but people say it's like marrying three other people. You've got to you got to be able to live with this person, with their flaws and their good things and their bad things, and it's frustrating, as a person who's an artist, because I think that all good musicians are artists. You have a vision, and I've come to the table many times and said, I've got this idea, this would be so cool, why don't we do this? And somebody else in the band will say, I think that's completely wrong, and say the exact opposite. And it's tough sometimes to sit back and go, okay, I respect your opinion, that's cool, when it's the exact opposite of your opinion, and you're thinking, what's wrong with them? They're stupid. So that is the toughest thing. It's just finding those people that you can actually relate with and relate to and actually work with and just get along with and have the same vision. And at the same time, finding somebody that's different enough that you're able to play off each other and create something actually unique. Because that's really the way that unique art happens, with opposing viewpoints that find a way to work together.
Right, it's the old saying, opposites attract, and that works everywhere, not only in social life, but in music as well.
Yep, exactly.
So to circle back a bit to Vae Victis, now it's been 3 years, if I have my numbers right, it's been 3 years since Recon. When you went to do Vae Victis, was a lot of that stuff already kind of written and waiting in the wings, or was it just one of those albums where you sat down and went, but you know what, it's time, it's been a while since Recon, let's sit down and bang out some new material?
There was one song that we had written that was supposed to be on Recon, but when we recorded it during the Recon sessions, it just didn't come out right. It didn't feel right. So we had that one left over, which we ended up taking apart and using. We used part of it in the song that's now Vae Victis on the album, and part of it in a song that's called Exhortation on the new album. But the rest of it was written new. We started writing the album actually on that UK tour. We started writing it. The first song we completed was called "Of the Most Magnificent," which is on the album. It was a new process for us. And I think that when we put out Recon, we spent a good amount of time just touring that and touring behind that. And for a good while as well, we not having a permanent drummer because we played live with a couple of different people. It was a little tough to continue writing because we didn't have a whole unit. So that that poses some problems. But once we finally sat down, then we started writing, and I would say the better part of 2012 and the first half of 2013 is when we focused on writing Vae Victis.
Awesome. Now the production of it. Now, how I've heard recently on Facebook that you guys are getting a major push from Lamb of God, and I've heard some rumbling of Lamb of God had a little help in the production of the album, or is this one that you guys did on your own again? What's the real story behind everything between the album's production and the push that Lamb of God has been nice enough to give you guys.
Sure, yeah, it actually goes back quite a ways. In my professional life, I've worked with the guys in Lamb of God in the band for quite a while now, quite a few years. And in, God, what was that? I think it was 2010. In 2010, when Lamb of God was in town opening for Metallica at the Garden, Chris Adler and Lamb of God's producer, Josh Wilbur, came to see IKILLYA play at Ace of Clubs in Manhattan. And they came to the show and had a good time and hung out. And as a result of that, Josh, who's the producer who did their albums, he's also done Gojira, Hatebreed, Slipknot, quite a few different bands, reached out and said, hey, you know, I like what you're doing. I'd love to work with you guys. And he ended up producing Recon. And we just had such a great time working with him. When it came time to do Vae Victis, we called him again. And so we did Vae Victis with him as well this time. And you know, the push from Lamb of God is really just that they're just great guys. They're really awesome guys, and very flattered that they would, you know, be willing to throw the video up for us. But you know, it's kind of that Lamb of God didn't actually, you know, produce the album. They didn't back the album. We just we used the same team. You know, the same guys produced their albums, produced ours, and from that they were nice enough to give us some love on the Facebook page.
That's why one of the reasons why I wanted to make sure I got you on here so that we could discuss it, because, you know, the way internet works today and social media, you know, there's no more verbal connection between people. Everyone just kind of sees something and goes, you know, well, they're helping. They did it, you know, it gets misinterpreted, and then we all know the old saying, it spreads like wildfire. Which is why I wanted to get you on to find out what that connection was. And, you know, even though it's a small, some might say it's a small connection, it's still a connection nonetheless, especially with everyone's doing self-producing in basements on Pro Tools. For you guys to be able to have the opportunity to work with a producer that's worked on albums like Gojira and Lamb of God.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think that's a really important thing. I think that, you know, basement producing and doing stuff on your own is definitely good. And I think that for some people it's a great tool, and for some people it works well, and it definitely helps with the writing process and helps lower the barrier to entry to be able to make music. But, you know, it's a whole other skill, you know, being a producer and being a recording engineer and getting the right sounds out of a guitar and out of drums and understanding how to do that. It's a whole other skill. And, you know, as much as Josh Wilbur and I think both records we've had pretty good arguments in the middle of making them, because, you know, he has an opinion and I have an opinion, and we're both passionate about them. So we've had a couple of arguments, but, you know, notwithstanding that, I really have valued his opinion and his outside view. You know, sometimes, you know, when you're writing the record and you're recording the record and you're in the middle of it, it's really tough to be able to, you know, have an objective view and see, okay, I can see, like, you know, how this part works better here and that part works better there, and having him to be able to come in from the outside and say, okay, I like this isn't quite good enough, you can do better. I think it's a very important thing for a band to have somebody, if nothing else, just having that outside voice, but then additionally that really knows how to get the sound that you're looking for. It knows how to, you know, because it's a science all of it in and of itself. You know, the difference between even just the raw recorded file and the mixed file, you know, it's significant. You know, and EQ makes a huge amount of difference. And having someone who knows how to do that, I think, is very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like, you know, you say, it is a very unique science. You know, everyone figures they can go buy a computer, buy Pro Tools, read the manual, watch a few YouTube videos, and suddenly they know what it is to put together their own album. But that, you know, isn't the case. You brought up a really good point about how you need that outside source to give you input, because sometimes you're just too close to the project. You may have written something one way, but the producer may hear something and say, you know what, try going this way with it. And that ends up being what you need.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, there's a couple of different points on Vae Victis where, I had written a set of lyrics because there was a very specific thing that I wanted to say, and I was kind of trying to shoehorn those lyrics into the rhythm of the song, and Josh said, look, you're breaking the flow of the song. You need to rewrite those lyrics. And I really didn't want to because, I was like, no, I want to say this exactly this way. And at the end of the day, I think people will listen to the song and they'll, I made the changes you wanted. I don't think that anyone will ever not understand what I was saying. Maybe I didn't get to use the words in exactly the same way that I wanted to. Maybe it's not as clever as I would have liked it to be, but they're not going to listen to the song and hear me cramming a bunch of words into 3 seconds and feel like, wow, that doesn't feel right and that doesn't sound right. And that's not something that I was able to see on my own because I was so tied up in this is how I want to say this. And I think it helps the songs, but I would have never been able to do that on my own.
Right, I mean, that's why so many bands, even young bands, even if it's just a friend that knows the band, so many young bands can learn from having that extra voice that isn't really connected in any way to the overall writing process. And I'm looking now at Vae Victis. It is available now for pre-order on iTunes, coming out on April 29th. What are the plans kind of leading up to the release and after?
So right now I'm in the middle of booking our touring. I'm very close to having it finished. Looks like we're going to be leaving on April 12th. We're going to be going all the way to LA and back, so we're doing the whole U.S. I think we're doing 15 dates in 17 days across the U.S. and back. And then we're back in New York for release day, which I think we're going to be having a party at Duff's, which ought to be fun. And then right after release, we leave and we go to the UK, and we're going to do about 10 days in the UK. And then we come back, and we're up for it, and we're doing all that stuff. That's, just us on our own, touring, playing little clubs. And then we've submitted for a lot of bigger tours this summer and fall, which hopefully we'll get. But, we're a very small band, so, if we get any slot, we're going to be the very, very opener of the tour, and we're going to be the last one picked. So we won't really know whether or not we get those until probably, into April. But the goal is to be on the road as much as possible this year, and hopefully we'll be able to do that.
Do you find that that's becoming more the trend for the local bands? I mean, I've been in the scene a good 5 years now, and I've noticed in that 5-year time that it went from being where you played, every other month in this area or in your home area before even thinking about expanding. You do like a year or 2 years of just your area and then start expanding. But I'm noticing, and I wanted to get your take on it before I let you go, is that becoming the trend now for the indie bands to say, our local area will always be there, so let's go outside first and then come home?
I think for us specifically, I mean, I can't really speak for other bands, but for us specifically, we felt a lot of pressure to really deliver a bigger show, and a bigger show meaning attendance from other people. We get that pressure from clubs and from and from promoters and people like that, because the more I use this term loosely, but the more success that we've had, the more people kind of expect that, okay, well, we'll book IKILLYA, and a lot of people will come to that. And, so when you're playing in the beginning, you play as much as possible to try and, learn how to play and get tight and get better as musicians and kind of help to grow a fan base. But then it kind of gets to a point where you're expected when you play to bring, 50, 60, 100, however many people it may be. And that's not something you can do if you're playing every month, because especially in a city like New York, we're not just competing with other bands. We're competing with movies and Broadway and restaurants, and there's so many other millions of things to do in this city that it's tough to get people's attention. And if we played here every month, then I feel like people would go, I'll catch them next month. So there's that side of it, that we need to make every show that we do in New York be much more of an event and be much more special and really hopefully get people more excited about it. And then the other side of it is that, we've been making a record for the last year. I've been making a record for the last year, and there's, 3 people in the band who are new, who are just learning the material. And so when we come back to New York, I really, it's going to be all our friends, it's going to be our family, it's going to be other bands, it's going to be other people in the music industry that have heard about us and are hearing things start happening. And I want to make sure that that show is absolutely the best show we can possibly put on. And I don't think our first show out is going to be that. It'll help to get a couple of weeks under our belt and get ourselves nice and tight, and be in a, like as we call it, it's currently Operation Dolphin's Butthole, because Dolphin's Butthole is watertight. So
I like that, Dolphin's Butthole. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's currently the goal. Operation Dolphin's Butthole. That's what we're working on, trying to get as tight as possible, and then come back and really do a good show that hopefully people will really enjoy.
Awesome. Now, Vae Victis, is it going to be available digitally and physically, or are you going the way of everything else and going straight digital, iTunes, Amazon MP3 only?
No, it's going to be both. We actually this happened last December, but we just announced it a couple of weeks ago that we've signed to Megaforce Records. So the record will be coming out physically as well as digitally. If you go to our site, IKILLYA.com, you can pre-order the physical right now. Everywhere else, it's only the digital. But yeah, we'll be doing both. I mean, it's definitely like very limited run physical. It's just not as many people want physical product anymore. So it's not going to be a lot of them made. But we will definitely be doing both.
Yeah, it's only the old dinosaurs like myself that are diehards for physical copy with artwork and casing and liner notes and it's the only.
You and me both, brother.
You see, I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me too, man. That's all I buy: CDs and vinyl.
I'm slowly running out of room for CDs, and but I make room. I make room for all of them. I will make room for Vae Victis once that bad boy is out, and I'll make sure to get my copy. Everyone do that yourself. IKILLYA.com for the physical copies. If you're a dinosaur like myself and Jason, or just prefer it, on iTunes, pre-order now. Vae Victis, April 29th, from IKILLYA. Jason, thank you for taking the time out tonight to call in and talk about everything going on with you guys and helping bring some clarity to the push that Lamb of God gave you guys recently on Facebook.
My pleasure, man. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Anytime, man. Before we wrap this up, you want me to play Vae Victis, the single title track from the new album, or should I go and pull something off of Recon?
No, let's do the new one.
Alright, right now, guys, here you go. Brand new music from IKILLYA. This is Vae Victis here inside the Asylum.